Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? I'm Mike. I'm doing just sort of these series of check-ins at 9 Central each night to see how different lawyers are adapting, what the heck we're doing. Today, I'm with my friend Todd Smith. We're going to talk about what he's doing and how he's adapting. He's got a really cool appellate firm in Texas, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Todd, I'm going to put you on hold for just a second, and I'm going to go share some things with the group real quick. I like to share different resources, so let's go over to the screen share. I thought this might be the most important article I've seen in a long time. It's called The New White Lies of Lockdown, and basically it's a guide for how you can get off of the phone with people, get off of Zoom calls and stuff with people politely. It's really cool. You can say things like, I have another Zoom call coming, or I have to go make dinner for the kids, or whatever BS you want to make up. It's a really handy guide for being able to get off the phone. So that's useful. The other things that I wanted to share with you real quick, if you want to be freaked out and hyper concerned and feel like you're in a dystopian future novel, go listen to this podcast episode. It is amazing. This guy, and he's talking to experts. He's talking to epidemiologists and different experts about how this thing's going to roll down. But seriously, there's a conversation about people wearing labels and people who are immune creating a new social class, and it's all kinds of freakiness. So go listen to that podcast. It'll wake your brain up. Finally, I wanted to show you guys, I'm sure you saw in the news because you're all paying attention to this, especially if you, like me, have a large bank and hate them. Congress has approved another $450 billion of money for people to access for the PPP plan, but who knows how this is going to roll. One of the things that I thought was hilarious about this was that they made a particular carve out to make sure that small banks get money. And it's hilarious because small banks were the only ones who were giving any money to small business owners. And so here I am with a large bank. Because I'm a small business, the large bank did not care and did not take care of us. And you saw the story, I imagine, I think it was Chase that went all out of order to try to get bigger loans filled first, which is not the way the system was supposed to work. And that's how it apparently has worked for us as well. But if you are at a small bank, you are doubly okay. So check out that article as well. I think I shared that on there. Basically, the article talks about how we need more than just a PPP program. We need to talk about what small businesses really are going to need to survive, and it's going to be more than just a 2-month shot of money, and especially loans. So check those things out. I would also remind you guys the Lawyer Forward virtual conference continues. We're doing sessions every day where we're talking about the sessions, right? We're doing live video sessions where we're watching the sessions from the conference and talking about it. So check on the left-hand side of the page, and you'll see an events tab. Click that. It'll show you the events that are coming up. Come hang out with us. Totally free, easy to access. It's just on your Facebook page, just like this. So, and here I am with Todd again. Todd, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. How's it going?
I mentioned you today in, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned you today, actually, in one of these Facebook sessions where we were talking about the conference. We were talking about what kind of marketing is appropriate for right now, and especially if you're starting a firm.
Yeah.
And in this weird context. And one of the things that I said was, if you can be the host, if you can be the person who invites people and you can go show up. And I said, I had this weird situation where I was in law school and I had connected with people already. And so when I came out and practiced in Austin, I had referrals from day one because I had hosted people at the law school and I had connected with people in bar events. And that's Todd. Todd's on the list.
Well, I remember you from your days as a law student because you were like the only guy showing up to solo small firm section of the Austin Bar Association functions.
Which is ridiculous because there was always free food. And like, where are you, students? Where are you?
Well, and you know that's true today. We don't have a large number for the audience's edification. I'm now president of the Austin Bar Association. And so I've, intimate knowledge of how the law students are showing up or not showing up. And you remain, Mike, the exception to the rule, because you did distinguish yourself by showing up and taking an interest in folks. And I mean, I think you witnessed it. Lawyers, if a law student will show up and insert themselves into the situation, lawyers will go out of their way to help them.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was at Texas, I would bring the kids. We did Orange Santa one year, and I would bring one of my kids each day as sort of a pet mascot because all the law students would like flock around us and be, oh my gosh, they're so adorable. That's what happens to law students if you go to bar events. Just so you guys know, just show up and everybody gets around and is like, let me touch it. It's awkward, but it's also awesome. So Todd, your practice, you are like the one person. You and Steed are the two people that I know, Jason Steed, who actually do the stuff that they taught us to do in law school, which is really exciting. You're doing only appeals, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, appellate practice is my game, but appellate practice is not limited to just sitting around writing briefs.
Right.
And I can't speak for Jason, but I suspect his practice is similar to mine, and that I spend a lot of time in the trial courts. Mm-hmm. And most of my role there is in advising other lawyers on how not to screw things up. That's not a very polite way to say I'm there.
It's true.
I'm there as the backstop. I'm there to kind of, read the tea leaves, stare into the crystal ball, and to try to keep things on track, or damage control, try to keep things from going too far off the rails.
And make sure things are preserved, which is like got to be the most annoying thing for appellate lawyers. You, I think, I could be wrong, but I think when we met, which by now would have been 2010, 2009, 2010. I don't remember if you were solo, or I think you had a couple. But now, how many people do you have now?
Well, let's see, 2010, I was still a solo. And my firm has evolved considerably since then. But what's kind of funny is I've said that we've gone through the life cycle of a law firm in the last 10 years. So when you and I first got to know each other, I was chef, cook, and bottle washer in my firm, doing everything on my own without any of the technology that we have today that makes things so much easier. The automation, tools and so forth just hadn't been developed yet, right, or were so far out there that nobody was using them. It certainly weren't, the cloud was not even in existence in 2010. And so, but over time, over the next 7 years or so, 8 years from then, I actually grew in my practice to have 3 other lawyers in 2 other locations besides Austin. And, what happens when you bring other lawyers into your firm is they figure out which end is up and eventually they leave.
Sure.
And that's happened to me a few times. And I think last time I checked, I believe I had started, or at least been the jumping off point for 3 other law firms.
Yeah.
And my last partner to leave, he wanted to go back and practice at a big firm with a lot of resources. And so when he left about, not quite 2 years ago now, or not even a year ago now, if I got my timeline right, you having to dig down deep a little bit. But when he left to go back to a big firm, we closed our Houston office, and I decided at that point that I didn't have to have other offices. That It felt good, I could puff my chest up and say, hey, I've got offices in the Rio Grande Valley. I've got an office in Houston. I'm an Austin lawyer. I head up this fancy appellate practice group. In the end, it didn't mean anything really. And so I look at where things are now. I'm back to being a solo with 3 staff people who are all part-time. And then we contract out our paralegal work. So I'm really the only full-time person in my firm. Now, is it going to stay that way forever? No, it's probably not. But it's actually a pretty good place to be right now. Yeah. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Because when it comes to dealing with the pandemic and all that, we've we've been really well positioned to do that. And one reason I'll tell you why, I know you've kind of built this is, talking to me and how I've adjusted to the situation. But the beautiful thing about it for me is, I'd already closed my offices. I even closed my own office a year ago, and we've gone all virtual. And so every person I have working for the firm works out of their home, and already did long before the pandemic. I'm coming to you, live from the office that I work in every day. And so I think my timing was just lucky, but I had decided that, the traditional law firm path just wasn't going to work for me, and I didn't want to do it. And, there have been challenges. There have been times I've thought, well, would I be better served? Would my clients be better served if I actually went in and joined another firm? And I got to tell you, I just can't get hyped up to do that.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to the jobs that I've had, but you forget office politics. You forget having to look like you're working when you're not. You forget a lot of those social things that that you really kind of take for granted, that I don't have to do any of that stuff. I mean, sometimes I have to pretend like I'm working so my wife will leave me alone while I watch reruns of Chuck. That's what the apocalypse has done to me. But, as far as she knows. Of course, she could be watching this right now. Hi, honey. So in terms of adjustment, you have staff that's all part-time, that was virtual. Are you doing anything to connect them, to like make sure that they're talking to each other? Was that ever a part of the function before? Were you guys doing Zoom calls and stand-ups or whatever?
We were doing Zoom calls and stand-ups and getting together face-to-face periodically, even when I had other offices. Right. I looped into Slack and Zoom early on, and realizing that, one of the things that was going to be a challenge in maintaining culture in a firm with multiple locations was going to be, how do we communicate with each other as if we're down the hall? Right. And like I said, the timing for me just worked out because, these are tools now that, everybody knows what Zoom is now, but I've been using it for like 3 years. Yeah. And we were using it.
We should have invested.
I told my wife that so many times. And even when this whole thing first broke, I was thinking to myself, is it too late?
It's so funny because really, when you think about that, what we think is new and innovative and crazy as lawyers, we're probably actually past the test stage. Like, if it gets to us and we know what it is, it's probably going to be a big deal. We should probably just buy some stock, like whatever it is that we use, because we're already 3 years behind. Yeah. Are you, in terms of the marketplace, are you seeing... it sounds like you were doing probably virtual consultations or whatever meetings before. Are you seeing a decrease in new contacts? Are your pipelines the same as they were before? What's changed?
Well, the pipelines are open. I've opened a few new cases since the pandemic hit. Of course, the problem is my work really depends on litigation. And litigation, I think, there's been some adjustment there. We're seeing Zoom hearings taking place here in Texas. I think it's happening in lots of places. Right. And actually, I was reading on Twitter today that there was a full-on bench trial going on over Zoom somewhere in the state today that was being followed and talked about by a lot of people.
Oh, Michelle O'Neill's case. Yeah, that was a family law case. If we're talking about the same one, the dad had... Or sorry, it was the mom had died, I think, and the dad who was raised the kid basically had no rights as a step parent, but and was going to go. I don't
think we're talking about the same case.
But yeah, I saw that one, and that one was
she
all
argued,
Supreme
I think,
Court.
In the Supreme Court today, and that was over Zoom.
That's crazy.
But we're talking about bona fide trials of actually disputed cases, and so when that picks up. If it actually does take hold, and who knows if we can really predict how long we're going to be locked down. Okay. For me, it's litigation kind of came to a grinding halt, and that's where a lot of my work comes from, is from litigators. And on any given month, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to be doing, 3 months out anyway.
Right.
So I hate to be the boring guest that says, nothing's really changed.
That's so funny because my wife and I were talking about like that we've always sort of been like this. The only difference with right now is there's the promise of government money in the background, right? Like that's really the only thing that's changed is somebody's apparently throwing money at us. Are you trying anything new in terms of offering different product, different services, or are you thinking about, different marketing techniques?
but these are things I was thinking about before because I, follow you and I listen to what you say and I think about what's my practice going to look like 10 years from now. And so I've been already thinking about doing some unconventional things like, I'm in the process of trying to convert to pretty much a flat fee model, for example, getting away from the billable hours. But I've also been trying to work out in my brain and come up with a concrete plan to serve some lawyer clients on a subscription basis. Because I've known some people who have done this and not in my area. I don't know of any appellate lawyers who have done it who serve trial lawyers the way that I do. That's my real client base is the trial lawyers. But, I've talked to a few of my clients and told them, look, you have these periodic issues that come up where you have to call me and then we have to open a file and, we're always going to have to run the conflicts check. But it takes sometimes a day or so to kind of get ramped up. And if it's a significant matter, you got to pay the retainer and all. If we had sort of this ongoing thing, I can check my conflicts in, 20 seconds. If we had an ongoing kind of engagement going on where you're paying in, you're getting a chunk of time every month for X dollars, and it could be a discounted rate, would that be something that you would want to look at if you could have me say, look over your summary judgment stuff before you file it without worrying about either one, feeling like you're intruding on me and, to pick my brain about something that's really substantive legal work.
Right.
Or two, having to ramp up to the point where you're actually hiring me to co-counsel the case with you, which is its own blocker, right? I mean, trial lawyers that's a big decision to go and spend potentially thousands of dollars to hire somebody to help on an issue like that. So, one opportunity that I see is basically, I kind of hate this term, but sort of a concierge type service to trial lawyers where if you need the kinds of services that I offer on any kind of semi-regular basis, then maybe we can solidify it on truly a regular basis. And then over time, the cost kind of evens out. And then from a business development standpoint, what that does for me is if the case does blow up into a full-on appeal, I'm there and I already know the case. So
it's interesting because it's like you're almost running your firm like a consultancy rather than a services business, and that probably doesn't make any difference to anybody else. But in the book, I talk about this difference between being the expert freelancer type, where you're focused on a kind of problem and you're okay with it being in multiple contexts, serving who you can, and where an audience building business is really focused on a kind of person and they'll just bounce around problems. You're dealing with this particular kind of problem of going to an appeal, and you're able to sell your knowledge and your time and your insights in multiple ways. I think that's really interesting. I had always known you were doing stuff for lawyers, but I had never thought of it like you can repackage it in a way where that's the business, right? Like it's not just the way you're getting referrals; it's the actual work, right? That's a really cool idea. I like that.
And one part of my thinking on that is, depending on how the economy is going, how the legal market's going, trial lawyers sometimes have a harder time releasing or letting go of a good client who's paying. Right. And so they have this tendency to hold on to their appeals when perhaps they shouldn't. And so what I'm trying to do is bridge the gap, and offer them something of value that allows them to plug into my expertise, if you want to call it that. Right. Certainly, a lot of technical knowledge and experience, and a lot more efficient than the average trial lawyer would be in handling the same tasks, just because of that experience and knowledge. But right. If I can kind of bridge that gap between, well, I'm going to handle all this myself, speaking as the trial lawyer, and the deposition notices are still coming, the discovery responses are still due, and I've still got 3 hearings next week, but I've got a brief due over that same time frame. That there starts to get that's one reason why there is such a thing as appellate law as a specialty, is because it involves a different skill set. There's a lot of deep thought, writing, research, and it requires big blocks of time.
Right.
If most successful trial lawyers have a really hard time carving that out, they can do the work. That's not really the question. It's a matter of is that what they want to be doing? Is that the best use of their time?
Right.
Or they can hopefully bring in somebody like me, who can take that off their plate so they can go back to doing what they do the best, and then let me do what I do best, which is, not only bridging that gap, but also potentially taking it up or defending it at the next stage.
Did you read the book, Todd?
I've read.
Because I feel like you're sort of pimping it right now. You're trying to sell the book. Just tell people he gets a cut. Okay, this is his retirement plan. Is Todd's gonna? Hey, not even signed. Not even signed. I knew you were gonna say that.
I paid money for this.
I need to. Well, hey, next time I can move in the apocalypse, I'll come and see you if I can run faster than the zombies. So, before we go, I wondered: is there anything you're doing on the personal side to have to adjust? Is there something you found, even if it's like this is how I handle grocery trips? Right, Dallas, you're in, Austin is. Is Austin under a lockdown? Because Texas is weird. There wasn't a statewide, and then cities were doing stuff, and then counties were doing stuff, and then Texas was weird.
I think Austin may have been 3rd among the major metros to lock down behind Dallas and Houston.
Yeah.
We all thought something must be up when they canceled South by Southwest.
Yeah.
That was like
which I think was like 2 days after the NBA shut down. Like that was really early.
Yeah. I mean, at the time it was like, what the hell? But that turned out to be a great decision because, we see from what happened with New Orleans that, that's just a breeding ground. As far as what I'm doing, personally, I'll tell you what I'm missing is being able to go out and work out at my gym. That's been a challenge.
I'm totally with you. I'm not with you. I'm totally with you.
But I'm actually eating better. Which is nice. I'm spending more time with my wife and kids, just, and I'm sure you are too. That could be good or bad.
Yeah. Help me. Help me.
The grocery stuff, that's been a challenge. I mean, I'm not the primary grocery shopper in my family, but my wife has been going. We haven't been able to get curbside orders, which we usually can do at HEB, no problem. And we knew something was up also when the curbside order started becoming the next available time pickup wasn't tomorrow or the next day. It was 2 weeks from now, which hampers your meal planning a little bit. So,
and if you guys who are not in Texas are bored at any time, go read up on why HEB fared better than other grocery stores. HEB is God's grocery store, first of all.
Amen, brother.
And I miss it very, very much. But their supply chain wasn't nearly as disturbed as everybody else's. So when HEB gets jacked, there's a problem. One thing that I've found, just as an aside, that I'm reading a lot less. Like, I don't know why. I think my anxiety must just be high or something, because instead of reading something, I'm watching something. I just want a brain, just pulling me out, which is weird.
To connect with you tonight, I just took a break from, we've been binge watching Homeland. So
there you go.
I have to admit, we've been watching a little bit more TV.
I'm legit going back and watching Chuck. If you guys have not seen Chuck, my kids had not seen Chuck. I was like, what kind of parent am I? And now we're all going binging back through Chuck. So y'all watch some TV. Todd, I don't want to take too much of your time. I appreciate you hanging out. I've always appreciated your mentorship. You're making me feel welcome. It means a lot to me. And you're in the group now, so I hope you guys will connect with Todd. He's in Austin. Really smart guy. He's been dealing with solo small firm world for a long, long time. So make sure you guys connect with him. And Todd, let me know if I can do anything for you. Have a good night. You guys make sure events tab, watch the other sessions. We've got 2 tomorrow, one midday, one into the day. I think it's John Strohmeyer. And Chris and I are talking at 12:30 Central about scaling a rural firm, which, as somebody who practiced in Brockport, is super interesting. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Todd, have a good night. Thank you, brother.
Thanks for having me, Mike.